You might say that in his battle against COVID, Dr. Anthony Fauci is fighting a war on two fronts, against the virus and an equally tough struggle against misinformation. Senior contributor Ted Koppel visited Dr. Fauci at home to get this battle report.
Every 12 minutes, someone dies. Every 12 minutes, someone dies.
More than 30 years ago, Dr. Anthony Fauci was being demonized by AIDS activists for not doing enough.
Tony, all of that is bureaucratic bullshit, and you ought to be ashamed of yourself.
These days, the ranks of Fauci critics have multiplied.
And this demon doctor must never be allowed to escape justice.
But if anything, in this age of COVID, the charge now is that Fauci has done too much.
Here's a guy who fully expected to spend his life giving prostate exams, and there he was declaring the ancient Christian calendar null and void.
When you see the "Thank you, Dr. Fauci" signs, does that shelter you a little bit?
It does. I mean, the fact that you know that people really care about you and understand what you're doing really deflects a lot of the crazy attacks that you get.
But after nearly 2 years of COVID, 750,000 Americans killed by the pandemic, and an unrelenting assault on his competence and honesty, does Dr. Fauci have any second thoughts about the past and fresh thoughts about the next time? Could it have been different if the president had led in a different way?
The answer to that is yes. But when you have leadership, denying that something is as serious as it is, then you have a real problem. So in that respect, it could have gone differently.
Does it border on the criminal?
I wouldn't say that because, that generates a lot of, unnecessary soundbiting. It's something as a public health official, in my mind, is serious. For example, one of the things that to me was most difficult to accept is that we put together a good plan for how we were going to try and dampen down the spread of infection early on, thinking that that was accepted by everybody, and then the next day the president saying free Michigan, free Virginia. I didn't quite understand what the purpose of that was, except to put this misplaced perception about people's individual right to make a decision that supersedes the societal safety. That, to me, is one of the things that I think went awry in all of this.
Did you ever raise that with President Trump?
I didn't have the opportunity to raise it. I was sort of like shocked, and then I didn't speak to him for some time after that. But it was at that point that I realized that I would have to just get out there myself and say things that clearly were going to be contradictory.
I'm not totally sure what the president was referring to.
That it was much worse than we're saying it was, that it's not going to go away tomorrow. It's not going to disappear like magic.
Because, this virus is going to disappear.
And unfortunately, that alienated me among certain people in the White House. Not necessarily the president himself, but he unleashed, people like Peter Navarro out there writing editorials that I didn't know what I was talking about. He had his comms people do opposition research on me. Could you imagine that? I've never heard of that, doing opposition research on one of your own civil servants. How does that happen?
At the time, the Trump White House denied that there had been any opposition research targeting Fauci.
There's no opposition research being dumped to reporters.
But over time, criticism has taken its toll. You're losing ground in public polling.
Yeah.
A couple of polls lately have begun to indicate that people are losing faith.
Right.
Are you just preaching to the choir these days?
It's very, very tough because if you keep lying about someone and keep spreading preposterous accusations, that there are going to be some people, if they hear that often enough, are going to believe it. But that's just the way it is. I can't change the fabric of society about social media and how it works.
I want to read to you a quote from an epidemiologist up at Johns Hopkins University. The question was raised, when does the pandemic end? And she said, it doesn't end, we just stop caring, or we care a little less. What do you think?
We are now at 70 to 75,000 cases a day and over 1,000 deaths. That is an unacceptable point to say we've got to live with it. Absolutely. If you get it way, 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 way down below that, well below 10,000 a day, that may be something that we can ultimately live with. So to say that, yes, we're just going to stop caring, we got to be careful and make sure that stop caring when you don't notice it, not stop caring when it's still killing 1,000 people a day in the United States.
A couple of years ago, it was not uncommon for us to lose 30,000 Americans a year to the flu.
Right.
Is that an acceptable level?
No, it's not. The difference between influenza and COVID-19 is that we don't have a very good vaccine against influenza. So we cannot accept a high level of deaths to COVID-19 when we have a vaccine that could prevent it.
If we had a chance to do it again, should we? Do we find the right man or woman who is so highly regarded, so trusted, that we put it all under his or her control?
If we had a country where people realized the importance of a communal effort, then we could do that. But that's not where our country is right now. Our country is divisive.
And I guess I should point out that 20 months ago, we thought that nationally trusted figure was a fellow by the name of Anthony Fauci. And for a while, it looked as though you were.
Right.
And then?
I didn't create political divisiveness. And that's the thing we're dealing with. We're dealing with the uncomfortable but real element of political divisiveness at a time when we are in the middle of a war against a virus.
No, but in a few weeks, you're going to be 81 years old. It would not be unreasonable to say, you know something, folks, I've done what I could. See you.
That's not the way I look at it. I'm the head of an institute that actually played the major role in the development of the vaccines that have saved now millions of lives at COVID-19. I'm the director of the institute that has now been very important in the basic research in leading to the drugs that will now have an important impact in the treatment of COVID-19. That's what I do. So I'm going to keep doing that until this COVID-19 outbreak is in the rear view mirror. Regardless of what anybody says about me or wants to lie and create crazy fabrications because of political motivations.